Hey everybody, welcome back. Spectre here on this 22nd day of October. If you're with me on the morning show, I alluded to the fact I'd have a separate piece here talking about what is going on by way of our ports and the congestion with all the container ships, things of that nature, what exactly all is going on there. I want to walk you through a couple articles now that I did not get a chance to cover on air in the last week or so, and so I thought, what the heck, I'll just bring it to you in this fashion here, and so here we are. Alright, so let's start things off with this guy here. This piece came through here just a little while ago this morning after broadcast. It says, top U.S. port chief warns, shop early for Christmas gifts because snarled supply chains will persist. Asada Zero Hedge says the executive director of the Port of Long Beach, the largest container port in the U.S., told Bloomberg Thursday that Americans should buy their holiday gifts now as congestion continues to snarl supply chains. Shop early because these delays and bottlenecks are going to continue to the end of the year, Mario Cordero, the port's executive director, said during an interview with Bloomberg Television. Hopefully we'll have some strong mitigating factors. The Port of Long Beach and neighboring Port of L.A. handle 40% of all U.S. containerized goods. At the twin ports, more than 103 container ships are at terminals or waiting offshore on Wednesday, an all-time high. In pre-pandemic time, the average backlog of vessels at the ports is between 10 and 20. So we are at least a tenfold increase thereabouts. And there we see the container ships at anchor in San Pedro Bay and its berths and ports of LA and Long Beach. At berth we're north of the 90 mark, and at anchor holding looks to be in the 70 range there. So that being said, looking at the rest of the article here, says Cordero's port continues to see a massive increase in containers, up 24% this year through September. He said surging e-commerce orders are to blame, adding that the top priority to fix this mess is to have the entire supply chain operating on a 24-hour basis, 7 days a week, including the port, truck, and train networks and warehouses. Now, mind you, I've talked a lot about that over the last several weeks about what's been going on there. Long Beach, I believe, did go to 24/7, only to find out later that it was only 24/4. And part of the reason why, exactly what they cite there, is the fact that trucks and chassis and warehouses aren't geared up for that. Which is odd, considering that ports all around the world outside of LA and Long Beach have been running 24/7 operations for years and years and years. Zero Hedge says this, there were 103 container ships at LA Long Beach terminals or waiting offshore on Wednesday, an all-time high. If anyone is telling you the supply chain crisis is getting better, they are full of it. Worsening supply chain challenges are only making things more complicated for the Biden administration, who recently announced measures to operate ports on a 24/7 basis is nothing more than hot air. Last week, a top toy executive told Fox News that Biden's port directive is too little, too late to save Christmas. Hence why Cordero told Bloomberg's audience last night to buy holiday gifts now. There's even been talk behind the scenes by the White House weighing the use of the National Guard to alleviate stretched supply chains so that Americans will hopefully get their consumer goods before Christmas. The administration is searching for ways to alleviate port congestion and doesn't want to be seen as the Grinch if consumer goods cannot be delivered to store shelves or their doorsteps. The World Bank and IHS Markit rank both ports as some of the world's least efficient, suggesting that structural issues continue to cause congestion of critical supply chains that might ruin Christmas for some. Now, mind you, many of these folks will also tell you, well, this was brought on by COVID. Baloney. These are problems now that have been known as we have embarked on just-in-time manufacturing, delivery, all the way through. And of course, you think of manufacturing be shipped overseas, dating back to the Clinton era, and probably before. Obviously, that has got a knock-on effect as well, right? And of course, we watch shipping costs go up, you name it. So, Aside from that, this piece came through about a week or so ago, and it is this: says, here's the truth behind Biden's 24/7 port operations pledge. This is written by Lori Ann LaRocco, author of Trade War Containers Don't Lie, Navigating the Bluster. Says Dynasties of the Sea, the untold stories of the post-war shipping pioneers. That was out of Marine Money Inc. 2018, first published on FreightWaves. When you tear away the frills of President Biden's supply chain announcement, it is essentially a political pawn to push the infrastructure bill. Let that sink in, folks. What is Congress trying to push through right now? A few $1 trillion here, a few $1 trillion there. And pretty soon you understand why they may be wanting to keep those container ships at bay, basically to use as a bludgeon and hold the rest of the country hostage to beg for them to pass this bill to open up the ports. The ugly truth is the congestion will not be alleviated anytime soon, and it will definitely not be any better in the next 90 days. Why? It's common sense and math. You can't blame private sector companies for this plan's future letdown. Trade takes people and coordination among all the players within the supply chain. The ports and all of the stakeholders within these ports must be on the same page when it comes to a 24/7 operation. Again, citing what I just spoke of before, not only takes support workers, but all the folks who ferry the chassis and that around to load them up, and warehouses and train operators, things of that nature. Every part of it has got to come into play, otherwise it too becomes a bottleneck in the system. The holes in this announcement are numerous. First, 3,500 additional containers moved in a week is 200 containers a day. During the month of August, the San Pedro Bay port moved 1,241,896 TEUs. This projection of 3,500 does not move the needle at all. That's a mere 14,000 containers, which translates into just 1% of the total TEUs. This plan is being called a sprint. Biden's announcement of 24/7 ports is not accurate. Only one terminal out of the 12 in San Pedro is operating 24 hours a day. Total terminals international at the Port of Long Beach, and that every second schedule is only Monday through Thursday, making it a 24/4 situation, not 24/7. A Port of Long Beach official said discussions were taking place with other terminals, but as of now, no other terminals have signed on. In the pursuit of 24/7, you need all the players to make this successful. The 24/7 operation at the Port of Los Angeles is not even happening. When asked if the port was going 24/7 on Thursday, the day after this announcement, the port press office answered in an email, "Not one marine terminal will go 24/7 tomorrow. This is a process to work the details of expanded hours leading to around-the-clock work in the private sector. It will take all private and public sector partners to operationalize this. There are no fast levers, but we have more cargo than ever and need to move it safely and securely." Gene Soroka, Executive Director, will be meeting with industry associates tomorrow on this. No ETA as of today. Mind you, this was a week ago now, right? Back on the 15th when this article has come through. Here we are, flash forward a week. Has anything really changed? Yeah, more backlog of ships. So, the ports as of right now are status quo as it relates to expanded operations. The reason for this lack of 24/7 is because every facet of the supply chain must be participating in an equal fashion. Truckers are not going to work 24/7 if they can't pick up containers at a warehouse that is closed. The flow of trade moves when everyone in that flow is working. The question is, what can be done to change the behaviors of those in the supply chain to go to 24/7? This frustration can be read in a press release from the Harbor Trucking Association, which said the Biden administration's plan did not address the core issues that have been plaguing the supply chain. The release stated, while steamship lines and their marine terminal partners have been pointing the finger at the trucking industry for not utilizing appointments during this crisis, the underlying causes have continued to compound unchecked. Challenges faced by truckers doing business at the port stem from productivity and efficiency issues that are not alleviated by merely shifting to 24/7 gate operations. The HTA said thousands of empty containers currently are sitting in motor carrier yards on top of the chassis, preventing those chassis from moving an import container off the dock. So those appointments go unused. This is not an issue of unwillingness to pick up cargo. The entire supply chain wants this cargo moved. It is instead a tangled web of shifting constraints that impede and discourage participation, the statement said. Also in this plan, FedEx, UPS, and Walmart were mentioned in stepping up and helping alleviate the supply chain. When asked for specifics, FedEx Global Media Relations responded. FedEx Logistics President and CEO Dr. Udo Lang appreciated the opportunity to join other business leaders and the administration to share our expertise and discuss supply chain issues, but we have no other details to share at this time. Walmart spokesperson Ashley Nolan said, we'll increase throughput by as much as 50% during the nighttime hours being added at the port. At the time of publication, UPS did not respond to comment. In the sea of faces of those attending this press event, a critical piece of the supply chain was missing: the ocean carriers and the port terminals. When Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg's office was asked why there was no participation, the response was vague. The administration has and will continue to have a regular dialogue with ocean carriers and terminal operators. Sounds an awful lot like a non-statement. And yet, at least one of those carriers has not been contacted: Hapag-Lloyd, one of the largest ocean shipping lines in the world. We have not been approached, confirmed a company spokesperson. Ships are already operating 24/7 wherever possible. The challenge is to get containers off the terminal by truck and rail because the warehouses will not and cannot take deliveries on weekends. It is a lot about shippers' inability to take delivery of their goods and infrastructure bottlenecks in the U.S. The carriers and the terminal operators are key pieces to this puzzle. The terminals are the key segment of the supply chain that not only schedules the truck container pickups and drop-offs, they also request the labor to unload the vessels. So, if this is a 90-day sprint, the U.S. supply chain needs more muscle and a massive shot of adrenaline. And why is Hapag-Lloyd pretty important in that? Well, it's only been since probably about springtime since following a lot of this play out. If you remember right, there were container shortages in that. One of the reasons why they said that they were having problems with getting coffee shipped out is a lack of containers down in South America. This dating back before having some of the drought and early frosts and things of that nature take out some of the bean crops net down there. And so Hapag-Lloyd is piped up and says, all right, well, we're going to up the ante, and we're going to throw some funds at building more containers. And I forget what it was, to the tune of 10 million, 100 million, whatever it was, but in order to help alleviate some of these issues. But yet, they couldn't bother to ask Hapag-Lloyd? Interesting. And last but not least, this one came out by American Thinker last week as well, and this probably is one of the bigger issues, I would say, that's contributing to this at this point. Empty Christmas stockings? Don't blame COVID. Blame California. And think of what we just had play out in California by way of this recall election, right? Newsom, on his high horse, emboldened by the fact that he wasn't knocked off the throne, has probably got a little chip to grind, if you will, or chip on his shoulder, axe to grind, combination of the two. Even at the time of the recall, I said, California realistically could be in a position to hold the rest of the country hostage by way of what's going on there. And it almost appears that's exactly what's going on. So this out of American Thinker says the conventional wisdom from the left is that COVID is the reason that shipping containers are in the waters off California with no stevedores or truckers available to take care of them. The implication is that if people would stop being selfish and take the vaccines, the whole problem would magically vanish. That's nonsense. As a couple of astute articles explain, the problem is that California has passed 2 laws, one for climate change and the other as a SOP to the unions, that destroyed much of California's trucking industry, and in woes unique to the industry and COVID payments that discourage people from working, and voila, empty Christmas stockings. Stephen Green at PJ Media explains some of what's going on. As a preliminary matter, truckers are aging out of the job, and new ones aren't coming along. Because federal law requires that truckers be at least 21, kids who leave school at 17 or 18 get involved in other careers, leaving truckers shortfalls. Women don't offset this problem because, as is typical for most physically difficult jobs, it's not their thing. Those are long-term problems. The short-term problem, though, is that California has passed laws taking trucks off the road. Twitter user Jerry Oakley reminds us that carriers domiciled in California with trucks older than 2011 model or using engines manufactured before 2010 will need to meet the board's new truck and bus regulation beginning in 2020. Otherwise, their vehicles will be blocked from registration with the state's DMV, according to California law. The requirement is to purchase electric trucks which do not exist. Sundance, a conservative treehouse, expands on this, explaining that the EPA reached an agreement with the California Air Resource Board to shut down semi-tractor rigs that were non-compliant with new California emission standards. In effect, what this 2020 determination and settlement created was an inability of half the nation's truckers from picking up anything from the Port of LA or Port of Long Beach. Virtually all private owner-operator trucks and half of the fleet trucks that are used for moving containers across the nation were shut out. In an effort to offset the problem, transportation companies started using compliant trucks, red low emission, to take the products to the California state line, where they could be transferred to non-compliant trucks who cannot enter California. However, the scale of the problem creates an immediate bottleneck that builds over time. It doesn't matter if the ports start working 24/7. They are only going to end up with even more containers waiting on a limited amount of available trucks. That's problem number 1. Problem number 2, again according to Green, is California's infamous AB 5, the law that, as a SOP to the Democrats' beloved unions, killed the gig economy. Traditionally, the ports have been served by owner-operators, Oakley says, who are non-union. But under AB 5, California has now banned owner-operators. Just like the union longshoremen, union truckers work under a whole host of work rules that simply can't accommodate crisis conditions like the ones in LA. Incidentally, Green says AB 5's language is included in the Build Back Better bill in Congress. How convenient. All of this means that Biden's grandstanding about having the ports operate 24/7 won't make a difference. The Greenies and the unions killed the infrastructure to unload those ships, with COVID restrictions, trucking restrictions, and free money landing the coup de grace that led to this situation. Biden does have the emergency power to order those California laws in abeyance, but, he's not going to do so. But the more serious underlying problem is that, in a distant, wonderful past, America didn't need to rely on containers from Asia to fill her store shelves and Christmas stockings. America was a manufacturing dynamo that fulfilled American needs and still had enough left over for the rest of the world. Those things were well made, too. Thanks to our devil's bargain with communist China, We have no manufacturing sector and are utterly dependent on China, both for things we like and things we need. Biden's inflationary politics and crackdowns on fossil fuels means that it will be virtually impossible for a renaissance in American manufacturing. Trump tried to stop this situation, but China owns so much of America's political and industrial class that the pushback shackled his presidency and pushed him straight out of the White House. It's a depressing scenario. But the rosy side is that China's got a problem if America can't open the door to its products. Add to this the disastrous collapse in China's real property sector, and China may be hurting as badly as we are. And here you can kind of see the aerial footage of San Pedro Bay. And of course, we've seen that many a time on the show where I've highlighted the container ships sitting at bay, anchored, waiting to get into port, etc., etc. So, again, that adds just a little extra color to what exactly all is transpiring. But don't forget that California plays a sizable portion of this by way of some of the legislation and edicts and decrees that they've pushed through. And no amount of 24/7 operations is going to fix that until we get rid of all this shenanigans around climate change and whether or not you need to have 2010 or newer engines in your trucks, or, we can only allow union trucks in, but you, the owner-operator, which I'm sure is probably a sizable portion of the market, you guys either got to join a union or you're pretty well shut out. Better yet, let's make it to where we make stuff again and don't have to rely on China. How about that? So that's where I'll leave it here today. Appreciate you guys tuning in, as always, and I'll see you back on the next one. Take care. God bless.